I encourage everyone to take a moment and breathe and take a tea cheers with a Jiri tea. A Jiri tea recognizes the beauty in shared stories and shared opportunities. Ajiri sources award-winning tea from Kenya, employs women in the region to handcraft the labels, and sends 100% of the profits back to the region to support orphan education. Save 10% on your order of Kenyan teas and coffee with the code BeautifullyHuman at ajiritea.com. AJIRIT.com. Tea mugs up. Hello and welcome to the Beautifully Human podcast. I'm Nick Sheesby. In this podcast, I speak with beautiful humans from all around the world, sharing with you their incredible stories, revealing the power in every human story, to spread love and humanity to a world that is in desperate need of it, to show that we can all connect in beautiful ways, no matter where we come from or what we look like. What you will find out is that we are all beautifully human. Let's all be beautifully human. Hello and welcome to the Beautifully Human podcast. Thanks for joining from wherever in the world that you're checking this out from. Today I am hanging out with Zack Rutledge and we have an awesome conversation. Zack is such a kind human. We talk about a funny show that he played back in the day. We also talk about some tougher topics like depression, but along with that, we talk about self-love and self-empowerment. So if you enjoy this podcast, follow along on Instagram at the Beautifully Human Podcast and on Spotify. Rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. It helps get these voices out to more people so that they can check them out. And most of all, enjoy this conversation. So yeah, I love to kick these off and let you kind of run with where the conversation will flow to and just say, tell me the story of your life.
All right. So the story of my life, I guess, pertaining to what I'm here for is, childhood was pretty quote unquote normal, like smack in the middle of the bell curve as far as like, income and like, my family's income and like, it was just a very stable childhood, right? So looking back now that I have the insight, I could tell that there were like certain bumps or bouts of depression, I guess, right? But I didn't know what it was at the time because, when you're 11 years old, you don't know what's going on, right?
Sure, yeah.
So like things would kind of got a little wilder as I got a little older as far as like just what was happening internally. As far as externally, I was playing in a lot of bands, which I still play in bands, but like, I was kind of hanging with, some of the bands were great people, some of them weren't. Some of them, I was playing in Philadelphia, we're watching people get thrown through tables and knife fights, and then I would play other shows in Philly that were just like beautiful and everything was a great time, but it was a lot of extremes, right? Sure. And I guess when things got like the kind of craziest was I was 18 and it was the summer after high school. My best friend was killed. So that was like, it was kind of like the perfect storm where it was like chemically things were kind of going downhill, which is kind of common, right? A lot of people in their late teens, early 20s, that's when they start to really struggle with things kind of manifest at that point. But it was also this whole traumatic event, on top of my entire support system was gone. So all my friends had gone away to college. So I was on my own, quickly flunked out of college, really struggled to really do anything. And maybe I'll talk about this later, but like, I remember one of my goals when I was like, all right, I got to get out of this. It was about 6 months after. And I was like, I'm going to try to watch an entire TV show. And like, that was like my idea of building like one small brick to get out of this.
Yeah.
So, and it was just like years and years and years of, I don't want to say trial and error, because there were some points where I didn't even know I was trying things. But there were moments where I kind of I learned a lot of things, right? So I learned a lot. I
Yeah.
actually ended up going to I ended up graduating from college with honors, and that took a long time. I graduated late. I was like 26, which isn't terrible, but this one I
No.
graduated. Then I ended up going to film school for grad school. And
Nice.
that was when people, and I wasn't like, cured by any means, but, and I hesitate to say this because it's a stereotype, but there tends to be, swimming in those circles of creatives, you tend to have a lot of depressed people.
Sure.
So I had a lot of people who knew my past reaching out to me, right? So what I did was I wrote all these emails to people, and or I'd have conversations with them, and I'd be like, look, I'll write this down for you, I'll send this to you. And things went on. I went on working in TV and doing all kinds of stuff. I ended up becoming a personal trainer. I'm a certified personal trainer, a fitness nutrition specialist, just kind of adding these things up. I'm about to finish my yoga teacher training, and I'm going back to grad school to become a therapist in the spring.
Amazing.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing to myself.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of building these things, and COVID hit. So once again, all these people in my circles, like the people I tend to hang out with, like musicians and filmmakers who took it a little harder. And I'm in New Jersey where COVID hit us pretty bad. I was telling you right before we rolled,
Yeah.
I know quite a few people who passed from it. It's not the same here as it is other places. And people were reaching out to me again. So I ended up going through all my emails and talking to people, like the old emails I was sending to my old film friends, and talking to people. And I said, look, this is getting nuts. Why don't I just make a book out of this thing? So I was like, I have off anyway, everything's locked down. May as well write a book about this thing. And that's kind of how all that started. And that's pretty much where we are now. I wrote the book about 8 months ago.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that throughout all of this, through your journey, with everything that you started to learn and adapt and bring into your life, it just seems that you had so much of a heart to help people with your nutrition, with your training and yoga, and then going to be a therapist. Like, where do you think that came from in you? Was that something you realized when you were young? Because I'm just thinking, as I was depressed, when I was depressed, I wasn't necessarily thinking to help people, but it seems as you were growing out of that or through that, you developed all these beautiful ways to help people.
Well, I don't know if you're familiar with the Myers-Briggs test, but I'm going to go there for a minute.
Yeah.
So I'm in ENFP, right? So
okay.
there's quite a few things that fall into the ENFP category. There tends to be a lot of artists in there, but there also tends to be a lot of like caretakers, for lack of a better term. So there are like, it's just for people who don't know what it is, it's based on the principles of Carl Jung. It's the idea is it's kind of how you're wired. It's the way they say it is, it's the things that give you energy. So like just for example, the first letter is an E or an I. So you're either introvert or extrovert, right? And I know you know this, but I'm explaining this for the listeners, right?
No worries.
And so there's 16 different personalities you can have, and that's not, it doesn't necessarily define you, but people, let's just say, for my example, like I'm an ENFP, like I said, they tend to swim in these certain circles. So, and they tend to enjoy certain careers, right? So, but we also tend to be artists and we tend to be caretakers. So like the taking care of people thing, I don't know where that came from, aside from just being wired that way. I mean, I got into martial arts when I was pretty young. I think I was 11. And that was just kind of a part of it. And see, part of my like building myself back up was like, that was after my karate school had closed, but I was like, I just gotten into like working out again, right? So I think like the becoming a trainer, honestly, it might have just been more about me, because I was in my early 20s at the time. And I was like, I had like the two sides, right? Like, well, that was just one side at that point. I was just like, doing typical early 20, I'm not going to curse on your show, but like typical.
You can if you want. I do a lot.
Fart, boobs, crap. All right. So like,
perfect.
Doing the typical things that people in their early 20s do, like kind of like feeding that ego, right? So like I was just, I don't want to say looking out for myself, but I was just doing like the artistic stuff, which in a way really helps people. You can't argue that. But I saw it as, I didn't care how many people heard the songs I wrote. I didn't care how many people saw the films I made. It was just like that internal build. Fine. So I'm trying not to go too long on this. But then So I think like getting that personal trainer thing was like another feather in my cap, so to speak, because I made like this big mistake of thinking I could fix myself by external accomplishments. So like, I graduated with honors, like I said, and I became a personal trainer, but it wasn't until, I got the certification, but it wasn't until I actually started working with clients. And then that's where the whole trying to help other people thing came from, because they were coming to me with issues. I mean, I'll let you in on a secret. Like I do fitness nutrition, I'm a fitness nutrition specialist, and the people who call me, we're not talking about nutrition.
Sure.
So like, we do here and there. Like they know they shouldn't be eating, or drinking soda,
Right. Yeah.
And yeah. So, that was just kind of like a natural progression. And I think just as I've matured, the healer side, I guess, so to speak, is what kind of developed. And now I kind of just carry myself as more balanced as like the helper side. And then like the other side where it's like, I'm still a person, right? So I need to get out what I do. So I'm still writing songs and I'm still playing shows and it's not COVID and I'm still making films, that kind of thing. So
yeah. And that's cool too, because I know self-love is such an important part of that. So I think that's cool that you figured out that balance of like, I can help people, but I also have to be there for myself. Because I think a lot of people that lend themselves more to being on the healer side give a lot of themselves and then kind of get lost in that, which is a noble thing to do. But yeah, you got to keep that love for yourself. You got to have your creativity to keep that energy flowing for other people as well.
Absolutely. And we have this girl in my yoga class who she's becoming a yoga teacher also. And I'll see her like really beating herself up and saying all these really nasty things about herself, where we're being taught these like yogic principles on like how to be kind and compassionate to people. And I just had to pause for a second. I was like, whoa. Like, you wouldn't say this to other people. You're a person too. So why are you saying this to yourself?
Right.
Yeah. So, and that's real easy to lose sight of that. Real easy.
Yeah. And especially in these times, I mean, you touched a little bit on COVID. I mean, it's, especially with music. I've been in the music industry for 16 years. I'll include last year, even though technically it was a year off. Not technically, it was for sure a year off for us. I think it will be really interesting to see what music comes out of this quarantine.
Yeah.
Because typically music comes out of the joy in life, the shit of life, the just all of it, the creativity. But a lot of us have just, the ones that paid attention, been locked up in our houses, staying inside for other people. So yeah, I'm interested as we're starting to see it open. And I know a lot of bands too didn't put out a lot of music because typically you put out music to tour with, and when you can't tour, it's hard to put out music because you don't get to promote it. You want to save it. I understand, but I also, I'm intrigued to see what comes out of it musically. Well, just artistically in general, but especially music, because that's such a feeling-based art.
Yeah, that's like the direct line, right? That's the direct line to your emotion, is music. So yeah, it'll be super interesting. I know like on a practical level, this may be not like totally on point what you're saying, but it's just on a practical level. We're doing like a lot of electronic stuff that because that's all we could do.
Sure.
And like we're a live band, like, so it's a weird thing.
Right.
But it's like that's what we could trade over the internet. So like, you may be seeing some of that, but yeah, as far as like tone and feeling, that's going to be real interesting, right?
Yeah. I'm wondering if in 10 years you'll go, oh, that's a 2020 song.
Right.
You'll just know, you'll hear it and be like, I know what that was. I know when that was written. I could have written that song if I was a writer. I'm with that one. And especially like you said, you're a live band. I think so many people are going to, or I know so many bands thrive on writing based on travel, based on shows, based on the energy they get from their fans. And so without that being there, and like you said, not being able to gather and like what you can send to each other. Yeah, it's a whole interesting to see. It'll be so interesting to see what comes out of
It's
it.
going to be weird. And another thing, like I know a guy who's, I guess he's like primarily a producer. Like he records, he's like an engineer and he records a lot of bands. Um, but he has OCD. And
Mm,
what's happened with a lot of the um, like the lockdown stuff is people's quirks, let's say things like OCD, whether it's OCD, depression, or whatever you've got, those tend to get heightened. So
yeah.
his, so since COVID and he was locked in, he was getting so obsessive about everything he couldn't record anyone. He couldn't. I mean, he had it set up to where he could have like logistically like it would have been safe, but he wouldn't even record music himself
Oh
because
wow.
everything was just if everything wasn't absolutely perfect. So I'm hoping that kind of cools off because I got stuff to
Totally.
record. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, you think about it too on the same line, but a different way of thinking about it is when you're a perfectionist on those kinds of things, when you have people coming into your space to be able to bring a different energy to your OCD and your perfectionism, you get to change what you're thinking. But when you're locked there by yourself and you're just have to be perfect and you don't bounce ideas, really, you don't have to bounce ideas off people if no one's in the room with you.
right, right.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be real interesting, right?
And I mean, like we've been talking about creatives, we just you feel more. So all these heightened senses and heightened thoughts that you're having,
Yeah.
but if you live by yourself or have a studio by yourself, yeah, it'll be
Oh,
very. It's all. I mean, I've been thinking recently because I got the first text about a possibility of a tour at the end of the year, and it's already I can feel in my mind just the oh god what do I feel about that? Am I comfortable doing that? I mean, it's just like what's been in our heads for the last year and couple months, and now it's opening back up, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta get back to it. It's just it's so strange. It's
it's
unlike anything obviously that we've ever dealt with. So it's a very odd feeling for that.
yeah. I was watching old episodes of Kirby Enthusiasm, which was obviously way well before COVID, and then like I was like, just like that subconscious thing, like, oh, they're getting too close. They're
Dude,
not wearing masks. Like, and I'm sure other people have felt that too.
totally. I feel that all the time. I'm just like cringy looking at TV being like, no, 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 don't do that. Oh God. Or I just see concerts and I'm like, yikes. And just thinking about all the passing of food bowls or just
hmm
it's just disgusting. Like
Yeah.
we are gross humans. All of us are. Even if we're not, it's pretty gross the stuff that was normal. I mean, I saw I mean, I'm just thinking of like people in restaurants and stuff. I walked by a place the other day, and as the mask mandates get lifted everywhere, I just saw somebody without a mask on in a restaurant, and I was like a server, and I was like, it's just so disgusting to me that your breath is going anywhere near food.
Yeah. So psychologically, like as a whole, we're all picking this up, right? And we're all, well,
Yeah,
some people don't care, but
right.
a good amount of us do. And we're picking this up and we're all going to be carrying this around. So it's going to be interesting to see how long this, let's just say, let's hope we wipe out COVID. I mean, we don't know, but let's
Right.
just say it goes away, right? To the point where we don't really worry about it. Um, It'll be interesting to see how we do regular things from now on, like how we feel doing things like flying on a plane. Like it'll be
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely going to be interesting. All right. Talk to me about your bands. I want to hear about your bands.
Oh man. Okay. So I laugh because um, our name is terrible, but on purpose. So
I love it.
yeah, yeah. So we're called Miko Brando. It's spelled Meeko space Brando, and it's actually like the real name of Marlon Brando's son,
Ah, okay.
because but he spells it different. And like so like that's funny. Nobody's asked me this. This is great. So like our guitarist and the producer I was telling you about actually went out to dinner with the real Miko Brando when they were on tour in California.
Amazing.
And like struck up this friendship. And they told me his name. I was like, that's not his real name. And they were like, yeah, he's in the Michael Jackson video. He's like one of the guys in the Thriller video. He's one of the guys in the movie theater. Like they're friends. They were friends. And I'm like, that is like that would be the coolest name for a band. Like you'd have to have balls to name your band Miko Brando. And then we had the chance to do it. And I was like, we got to do it. We got to do it. I got outvoted by everyone. Somehow we got called that. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. While we're on the topic, tell me some funny, I'm sure anybody in a band has some pretty funny stories from younger years playing shows. Do you have any funny or horror stories from shows when you're a young kid?
Lord, I've probably played 1,000 shows.
Anything that sticks out that's just
there's
ridiculous.
One story that sticks out, and I'll well, geez, I'm gonna have to choose one. Yeah, I mean, you know, I'll give you this one. Okay, so we were playing. I'm from New Jersey, and we were playing just north of New York City. It's this little place called Yonkers. Okay, and maybe people have heard of it. So we didn't really know a whole lot about what we had booked, and it turns out it was like all these skinhead bands, but it was like these two groups of skinheads who didn't get along, right? And I don't know what they were called. We were the band in the back. We were listening to like late 80s like freestyle music, like that. And we were like playing pool and dancing to that. And everyone was like either giving us like weird looks or ignoring us, right?
Yeah.
So, and then everyone else, just all these skinheads. Now, the venue was, it was one long room, and then next to it was another long room. And there were these two big doorways that go into it, right? So the first band comes on. It was the one type of skinhead, right? And they're all in there, and they're all just kind of like looking at each other, giving each other hard looks, right? But the band's playing. And there were all these chairs that I guess were on the floor that got moved out of the way, and they're all stacked along the sides of the rooms. So that band goes on. Everyone's in there, and they're watching it, but you can tell it's tense in there. It's tense in there. The next band goes on. I don't know if it was the other side of skinheads. We're just trying to stay out of it. We're just trying to play, you know, whatever. So we go watch the second band. Our turn. Great. We jump up there. We're all stoked. There was a lot of people there. We were like, okay, brand new audience, whatever. We're going to make the best of this. First note, the entire crowd shuffles out into the other room, except for 6 people. I counted them. They had hair. They weren't a part of the skinhead group. They were there for a show. I don't know if they stumbled in. They took a couple chairs off the stacks, and they just sat down. They watched us. Okay, fine. So we played to these 6 people. We finished. Everyone else shuffles back in. They're all there for these skinhead bands. I'm getting to the good part. So we played to nobody. Now, these dudes all come up to us, and they're like, and you've been here because you've been in bands. Hey guys, can we use your stuff? We didn't bring any gear. And we're like, oh, good Lord. So they want to use our drum set and our amps. So like, what are we going to do? We're surrounded by people we don't know in a town we're pretty far away from. We're like, yeah, fine. So we just put our guitars in their van. They start playing. They're playing. Last song, they take their guitars, hand them to the next band, go, like no stop. So they're using our drums, and it's getting late. We're surrounded by these skinheads, and we're like, dude, this is not good. Like, we want to go. We can't like say anything. It's already very tense. Next band, it happens. So this is we're like 6 bands into the show.
Oh God.
So we're like, this is it, right? So like they start passing stuff over. They start playing their set, and there's like a fight breaks out, right? Just like a regular fight. Dudes, you know where this is going. Start picking up chairs, throwing them. One guy pulls out a knife, and I'm not kidding you. The guy across from him starts boxing him like a 1920s boxer, like this. So while all this is going on, we look at each other without saying a word. There were these big double doors behind all of our stuff. We ran towards our stuff, swooped up the drum set in like one arm, grabbed all our amps, busted through the door, chairs flying everywhere. We throw them in the van. We see people on the outside who weren't even at the show looking for a fight, having bats.
Oh God.
So we throw all our stuff in there. We skid out of there on just from the confusion. We skid out, we're flying home. We call the guy, and we're like, hey, to the promoter, hey, we never got paid. And he's like, oh, sorry, man. Like, I'm gone. And I was like, and we were like, well, we'll come meet you. And he's like, oh, I'm out of town. I'm out of town. We literally, and I'm not making this up, we literally saw him at a 7-Eleven on our way home. We pull in.
Oh my God.
And we're like, dude, we need to get paid. We all get out. And like now like the tables have turned, right? There's like 5 of us or 6 of us. And we're like, we need to get paid. And he's like, well, I don't have the money. Like, because they were trying to just screw us. They were just trying to, whatever. So he gave us $6 and we're like, fine, we'll take it. We got
that's $1 a person.
Came home. Right. So it was just like a little hairy. Right. So
oh my God, dude.
but that's just like a very vivid memory that sticks out.
Wow. How old were you?
I was about 21 at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. As you were telling the story, I knew there was a key point when you said there were chairs on the wall. And I was like, when are these chairs coming into this? Because you said.
I doubt any of those chairs survived the night.
Oh,
I mean, they were, it was tense, man. These two gangs, I don't know. It was tense.
Holy hell. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh man, I know that was a very broad question and I know you have probably tons of that, but anytime I talk to people that have played in bands, I love hearing their
actually,
stories.
This was actually kind of cool. Like, somewhat related, like, in New York City, CBGBs, and a lot of people don't know what that is, but that was like kind of punk rock mecca. So that's like where the Ramones and Blondie and Talking Heads and Television and all them came up. And we actually got to play CBGBs with it was like Rise Against and
sweet.
Like E-Town Concrete. You wouldn't know who that is.
I know.
Oh, you do? Okay, right.
I do.
Right.
I mean, I don't know them well, but I remember the name.
Yeah. Okay.
I think they played a show that I saw in Baltimore or something.
Okay. Yeah. They're from New Jersey, and like this band Strife from California, and so like the high school me would have been losing my mind, right? But because because I'm like, oh, dude, I played CBGBs. I just bought a T-shirt from Hilly Crystal. Like, I just like, this is like amazing, right? And you could look at it either way. My depression was so bad, I didn't even watch the show. I just went in the van and waited it out. And like, I just played CBGBs. Like, it was like my dream since I was a teenage kid.
Yeah.
But on the other side, I was so depressed. I had these great things happening at the same time. So you kind of like, and it's hard to see that when you're so depressed, right? You got to think about, in hindsight, you had things bouncing you out, and it tends to be an up and down thing. Like, there are peaks and valleys, right? So it's not like you're constantly being held down. Even then, in my darkest of times, there were gentle points of like levity, I guess.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, playing CBGBs with all those bands, that's so rad.
It's whatever you're imagining. Picture it like quarter of the size.
Oh, right. I know plenty of people that have been there or played, and I'm like, that's what they say. Like, it's like a tin can.
Yeah. It was great though. It was super cool. Yeah.
That's so cool. What a fun experience. And I think, just like you said, there's been so many moments in my touring career where I have these amazing moments that anybody else would be like, oh my God, this is the craziest shit. And I was, for a long time, for 7 years, I was a severe alcoholic. Now I'm pushing 3 years sober.
Good for you, man. Congratulations.
Thank you. But man, there were times when I was at my like darkest depression that there was just this rad stuff happening, and I was just like bottom of a bottle, just not paying any attention, and people would be like, dude, how cool is that? And I'd just be like, I don't know, dude, I was sitting at a bar next door. And it's just like the amount of stuff that, like you said, you played that show and then you just kind of like waited it out, and I'm like, man, it's amazing when you get into that level of depression, what you can just be like meh about. Something that you would just lose your mind as as a kid is just like, whatever, I don't care. Yeah. It's wild.
It's I think for a lot of people there's not one cause, which is why, like I say in the book, did I give you a copy of the book?
No.
Oh, dude.
But I would love I would love that.
I got to send you a copy.
Yes.
I usually make that a habit. I apologize. I'm writing that down
No
right now.
worries.
I'm gonna send you a copy. Yeah, it's super short and it's super easy to read. But
Cool.
like that's why I try to come at it from every single angle, because I
Yeah,
don't think there's like a silver bullet, right? I think there's like a
totally.
lot of different causes. Like, you know, I would say it with a lot of things, like even alcoholism. There's like the internal, there's a genetic predisposition, if that's the word, and
Yeah.
like it could be trauma. It could be I rarely think it's just one thing.
Oh,
Um,
totally.
so yeah, and like this actually kind of validated it for me, even though I had pretty good feeling about that. I've been going on some podcasts with actual therapists, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you're right on spot. You're right on spot. You're right on spot." So that's been like really nice.
Totally.
And
Yeah,
yes,
that's
that's
got to
been
feel good.
yeah. So that's really really cool. But
Nice.
but yeah, it's and kind of like I said, I balance my life between these couple things. I feel like you kind of have a lot of things, and you have to have a lot of things in balance in order to get out of a hole like that. It's not going to be you know you have this great relationship with the girl, and then you're not alcoholic anymore. You're not going to be like, now I
Right.
eat perfect and now I'm going to not be depressed. It's going to be a multifaceted thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and just at the basics of it, talking about the shit that got you to where you're feeling that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know a lot of
Absolutely.
people who are kind of stuck in it, but they do stop drinking or they start eating better, which is all good,
Right.
and do take steps away from it, but won't talk about harder issues.
You're
I'm
absolutely
just
right.
like I know it's tough. It's never easy to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I mean it feels so good. I know when I was going through my worst, when I started talking about it, I had a one-on-one counselor, an alcohol counselor, and I didn't do AA. I didn't do the typical sobriety route, which I would never take away from that, but it just didn't seem the right way for me to go, and I didn't know what to do because I'd never been there before, and I'd never admitted that I was an alcoholic. But then I was in the hospital with beginning stages of liver failure and full jaundice, so I
Mm.
was in dire need of a change. And inwardly, I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. Outwardly, I was like, I got this. But I didn't know how to be a sober human. And then I met this woman, MJ, who was an alcohol counselor in my hometown in Ohio, which is a very small town, very Republican, very Christian, and that's all well and good. But I found this woman who's like purple hair and like been sober since she was like 19, and she's in her 60s, so she's been full life just at it, but she hit it hard really young. And it was so cool because she didn't know me, so I was just able to talk about a lot of shit with her. And then we'd talk for like 45 minutes of our session just about the hard stuff, and then she'd be like, I saw this band in 1970. And I was like, oh my God. So I just found this wonderful human in the midst of my hometown who started like opening me up and allowing me to just be myself, which was such an important feeling for me, was to find that self-love and that self-importance and
Mm.
all of that when I started into my journey.
Yeah. That's great. That's a great point too. Like, I know a lot of people who've tried therapy and they're like, oh, it's not for me. It's like, well, I think they just didn't really vibe with that.
Yeah,
They're not all therapists are the same, of course. Not all
totally.
people are
Yeah.
the same. Um, and yeah, it's almost like you're on a different frequency, right? Like when you're trying to communicate with the wrong person, and
Totally.
you knew it, and you found her. So that's, I
Yeah.
just and I understand, because I've been there, like not having the energy or the drive to like find the right person,
Yeah.
and just giving up. But if you stick with it, man, I'm glad you said that, because it pays off. It
Totally.
pays off way, way more than the effort you put in.
Yeah. And like you said, I didn't have an experience with having to find another person, which was so fortunate. But
Mm.
I mean, out of the amount of people in my hometown that I could have found to be with, to chat with, it was like we were meant to be. I was actually messaging with her today. We still have a good
That's amazing.
friendship going today, and it's so cool. Um yeah, and then yeah, it was just like I had never done any kind of therapy before, but once I did it, it was just like, this feels really good. And it empowered me to where I've gotten to today, which is so rad.
That's great.
Yeah. So good, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And
All
that,
right.
you said that. No, I'm just one quick
Oh,
thing
go
though.
ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Like, just by you saying so rad, so good, things you probably wouldn't have imagined yourself saying, right?
Hell no.
Right. So like
No.
that's an important thing that people take away in case anyone is listening or they know people who
Yeah.
are being sucked down, right? From whatever it is,
True. That is
that,
very true.
you found that light, right? It's not just me. You did
Yeah.
it too. And other people can as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Find that person that you can say so rad. I mean, find somebody that just hears you for you and you relate to, and you just have awesome conversations. And then you feel like you've found a friend who helps you through the harder stuff that you can't talk to your real friends about, quote unquote,
Right.
real friends,
It's like, it's a, like even just the word therapist, I feel weird telling people that I'm going to school to become a therapist because it
Yeah.
has this connotation that something is broken, like like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? When it's really just like everybody experiences some kind of trauma.
Right.
And so you know, but the word, but like the term life coach just sounds kind of cheesy, but it really is more
Right.
like a coach is
Yeah.
almost the way of putting it. That's what it feels like to me. Is like more like a coach. Yeah.
Yeah. I see both sides of what you just said.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who are transitioning to life coaching, which I think is fantastic, but also on the flip of telling someone you're a therapist, I think people just get so nervous because they have to admit something's wrong if they go to a therapist.
Right.
It's like, doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. It just means something's not right in your system, like in your head or in your system. And because it's not right doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just something that you need to get onto a better track.
You can always sharpen the sword, right? You can
Yeah.
always make things a little bit better. Yeah. So I'm hoping, I mean, I do think things are changing a little bit, but I don't want people like, when I'm finished with school in like 2.5 years, I don't want people thinking like, oh, he's a therapist, he deals with nut jobs, or like I can't go
Right.
to him. Yeah.
Yeah. It's such an old way of thinking about it, of like, oh, the nut job sitting on the couch.
Yeah.
I mean, we're, like you said, you can always sharpen the sword. I know I'm not perfect. I never will be.
Right.
So there's always something that I can learn, I can adapt to learn from. So I love these conversations. I get to learn from people. I get to hear people tell their life stories. And it's fantastic to keep your mind open to those things.
That's great.
Yeah, man. All right. I'm going to shift gears a little bit on you. If COVID restrictions weren't here and I came to you and I said, Zach, I have a plane ticket to anywhere in the world with your name on it, where would you fly to?
I literally said this to my mom this morning. I think it was just the mood I was in. I just said anywhere in the Caribbean scuba diving. It's just like what I felt like doing today.
Okay.
So if you were to ask me like today, that's what my answer would be. Yeah.
All right. I like that answer too. I haven't had anybody say like, today I'd want to go scuba diving in the Bahamas or in the Caribbean.
Yeah. That's
that's cool. I like that. I like that too, because I'm day to day, my answer would change completely.
Mine probably, if I really thought about it right now, it probably changed. But I'm just thinking about how I felt earlier today.
Yeah. All right. In your travels, where has been the most surprising place you've been to?
That's another good question. Probably Spain. Spain.
Okay.
Say. Yeah. It's
Where'd you go?
I spent 2 weeks there, all over Spain.
Oh, awesome.
And it was just real interesting. Like northern Spain was kind of like being in France, and like every part was totally different. And then you finally got to the very southern part, and that's what I would like envision the whole place to be, like the red dirt and yeah. So Spain was just so diverse, way more diverse than I thought. Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, I used to ask favorite place, and then somebody said, I can't. I mean, favorite place is hard, right?
Right.
If you've traveled even to 2 states, it's like, oh,
yeah.
I don't know. I liked them both the same. So I started saying surprise because I went to Romania for 5 days like 7 years ago, and it
Wow.
surprised the hell out of me. It was just like something I'd never seen. So that's so
What's that
cool.
like?
Oh man, I the history first off is just bonkers. I mean, they had a public hanging in the 90s.
Oh, good Lord.
I mean, Transylvania is a region there, which I think some people think it's a country, but it's a region in Romania. But that's where Vlad the Impaler came from. That
Yeah.
spurred um, the story of Dracula. So that whole area brought that out. The Pied Piper story came from there, which is a horrible story, which I don't think people should ever say, well, he's the Pied Piper, because it was not a good story. The kids didn't end up having a good time with the Pied Piper because they never came back. So if you're hearing this and you're calling people the Pied Piper, it's not a good it's not a good one to compare somebody to. Um yeah, it was just so much, and like the geography was amazing, and yeah, it was just cool. Like I didn't know anything about it.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I know nothing about it either. That was part of the USSR, right? I would guess.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole region is wild. Eastern Europe is amazing. I loved it. So when you went to Spain, what were you just road tripping? What was your
I went by myself, but it was like by myself, but not. I joined up with I went with a tour group.
Okay.
So it was all younger people. I was younger then. And like
Yeah.
uh yeah, so I just went by myself one summer just to do it. Yeah. Yeah.
That's so
Which is
cool.
like insane me thinking about that now, like how I had money to do that kind of stuff. Cause
Right.
like now it's like I couldn't even think of that. So yeah.
Yeah, because even years ago, I imagine like getting over there and doing a tour group had to be pretty a decent like expense to get that.
It was like one of those things that was geared towards younger people. So it was like it really actually wasn't that bad.
Okay.
Because like everything, because you went in as like 40 people or something, you got group discounts and everything was set up for you, like all the hotels and all, like, most of your
Yeah.
meals. So it actually, honestly, actually wasn't that bad. Yeah.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
What did you think of the food over there?
That was surprising too, because I guess what I thought Spanish food was like Mexican food.
Right?
It's not
Right.
that. It's not that. Yeah. Like, cause
No.
like they didn't even have tomatoes. So like that, this is actually interesting. We went to the place where like they introduced tomatoes to Europe because tomatoes are from here, from the US.
Yeah.
So like we saw the port where they pulled in tomatoes for the first time.
Wow.
So, and like a lot of the foods are like way old. So like the pre-tomatoes, right?
Right.
I pictured a lot of tomatoes, but yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I think there is a festival of tomatoes in Spain.
Is that in Spain? Is that Yeah? Is that Spain or Italy? Because one does oranges. I think the oranges might be Italy, and Spain is the
Yeah.
tomatoes. Yeah,
I don't know. A friend of mine went to a tomato festival, and I feel like it was in
yeah.
Spain.
I think that was Spain. Yeah, I didn't go to that. Yeah,
Man, I don't know. I love the idea too that you were talking about of like north and south in a country that's not massive being
right.
so different. I just love that's what I miss so much about traveling. It's just seeing the cultures, and especially if you get to spend an extended period of time out of this country and in one country or traveling around other countries. It's just so cool to see how diverse the places are.
Yeah, yeah. It was surprising. It was real surprising. It was super cool. I recommend it. Yeah,
Yeah.
if anybody goes, go to we went to good Lord, Barcelona. Oh,
Yeah.
it's so cool. It's so cool. Yeah. Highly
Awesome.
recommend it for anyone.
Yeah, I went to Madrid for 5 days with a friend of mine, and it
Okay.
was it was awesome. It was so
Yeah.
rad. I
Yeah.
truly enjoyed it. So in my travels, I always shoot for like meeting an old woman on the street and her just being like, "Oh, come cook for me," kind of like that kind of experience. In your
Yeah.
travels, have you ever just had that kind of moment where massively unexpected hospitality or just one of those kind of
Yeah.
stories happen?
Yeah, but I had a connection because I was with a friend. We were in Italy, and I had a friend. This was a separate trip, which makes me sound like a total like not what I
Jet
am.
setter, dude.
Sounds yeah, but I'm not like, you know.
It's okay,
uh,
man.
but I was there with a friend, and she had like the cousin of an uncle or something who was there, and he didn't speak English, but he brought us. We were in Rome. He brought us to like all these like insider places, and it was like a total shock. Like these things that we would have never seen, like this weird keyhole that saw like straight down this weird forest. Like it was like this forest designed just so you could look at it through this keyhole, and you couldn't even see the forest, like because it was surrounded by walls. It was like all these weird things that we saw. Yeah, so that was a big surprise. Yeah,
That's so rad.
yeah,
I just, yeah, I always love when you can find somebody that is local to a place and just like pal around with them.
yeah. It was great. I didn't understand a word he said. He didn't understand what I said. What I said.
Yeah,
It was awesome. Yeah.
it's so beautiful. And I think that's even cool too, of just like, I have no idea what you're saying, but I'm going to go with you. This is going to be good. I've
Yeah.
had, I don't know, I would love to be able to speak every language. That would be something. I wish I had that power to just get into a room and say, "All right, I know what language everyone's speaking and speak it." But I also just love being in an environment where I don't understand the language and it's just like poetry floating around.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I can't wait to get traveling again. It's gonna be so nice once that happens.
Yeah. I'm with you,
Yeah.
man. I'm with you.
Yeah. Um. All right, brother. I have two more questions for you.
Yeah.
First one is, what would you want the world to know about you?
Um, I don't think the world needs to know anything about me aside from like, you know, like whatever. I'm like whatever. But like, I just feel like almost like what we were talking about earlier, like the idea, like, you know, we didn't get real deep into it, but my depression was extremely deep and extremely like bottomless. It felt like,
Yeah.
and I want people to know, like, um, or just I guess use me as not as an example, but as one sample of like, you know, you can. It's way beyond anything you can grasp in your moment, right? When you're in those moments, it's way beyond anything that you know you can't visualize something like this, but it's absolutely a reality. I'm not saying I'm like, you know, I don't know, somebody to look up to. I'm not like the greatest dude on earth, but I'm doing things I never thought I could do, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm you know, happier than I've ever been. I never could have imagined myself being. You know, I'm getting married in October. I never imagined that, and like,
That's amazing.
yeah, you know, shooting a full length film. I never thought I would do that, and like,
So cool.
yeah, so
Yeah. What were your steps from? I meant to ask this earlier, and I'm just gonna go in with it now. What were your steps or from when you were like get through just a TV show? That was your goal. Like how did you go from that to like broadening that?
that was the darkest. That was I had failed out of um, college. I was just going to like a community college that was like right down the street, and I had failed out. So it wasn't like a huge like financial blow. Um, so thank God, right, that I chose to do that. Um, but I failed out either way, and you know, I was like, I just want to get through this TV show. So, and I talk about this in the book. I did like the worst possible thing you could do. I started watching the news, which is like the worst possible thing I could do, because it was
Yeah.
just like, man, if you really pay attention to the news, I was
Yeah.
like, somehow this is going to inform me and make me a better person, because that's what smart people do, right? They watch the news, and it was just all, you know, it's on the news. I don't have to explain it. It was terrible. It did
Yeah.
nothing to help me.
Right.
Um, I think, you know, funny enough, like music may have been the first step, because like, people were seeking me out, and luckily, um, I mean, well, at the time I was playing with some pretty rough in rough areas and, and all that, but then like I had some really good like older guys I was playing with in another band who were like, you know, into working out and that kind of stuff, and that was, you know, just the physical change first, because I could see it and I could do something, and I kind of wanted to be like these guys. and they were pulling me along, even though I was miserable. They were pulling me along. I think that physical thing was really the first real step I made, and it all just kind of grew from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
When did you end up writing your book?
September, October
Okay.
2020.
What was that process like?
It was great. I loved it. It was great. Like, I was going through all these old emails I had written to friends. Um, and it was, that extreme focus, which I love these days because you rarely get to focus on one thing. So I got to just sit down and really focus on doing it. I loved it. And I wrote the book that I wish I had had when I was 20. So like, it was a really fun experience, making it as lean and pack as much punch as possible. For like every single sentence means something in there. Because the last thing I wanted to do was read 350 pages to get an idea out of it. So
Right.
I made this thing is like 50 pages.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
it's the kind of, like I said, it's the kind of thing where every sentence means something. So that was like actually like a oddly rewarding thing, getting it as compact as I could and as nutritious as possible. Because I was like thinking like, man, if this gets in the right person's face, or read by the right person, this will matter. This will matter. Just spending that time, sharpening that. And and I joke about it, but it's kind of true. I wrote the book for the worst possible sales that you could ever imagine, because like, this is the crowd that's not going to seek out the help, right? The
Right.
worst possible crowd. So like, this wasn't to make money. This is a true passion project. So like I said a little earlier, like, this is meant to be a gift, right? So if you can send it to people, in fact, I'll send you a copy, and like, if you want to send it to anybody who you think can use it,
Yeah.
go for it. I'll send you digital copies. But yeah, on that note, if anybody wants like a chapter, just shoot me an email and I'll send them a chapter from the book so they can see, see if it's their cup of tea. Because I understand too, like, it's like a therapist, right? If it's not going to work for them, that's fine. But shoot me an email, I'll send you a chapter, or just get the whole book, whatever. It's like $4, I don't know.
Yeah, perfect. I was gonna say that the first time I had a friend who wrote a book about her journey with her mother with Alzheimer's.
Mm.
And it's heavy, of course. But she made it 50 pages similar to that. And I hadn't even thought about that concept, because my story, I have a hell of a story with my alcoholism and just life in general, just being on tour and working with bands and stuff. And I think that was the first time I realized, oh, I could do a very compact version. I don't have to write a 350 page novel.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, yeah. And it's absolutely worth something. It's like, I kind of equate it to releasing an EP. You can still have something to say in 4 songs as opposed to 12 songs.
Yeah, I like that. Well, I'm looking forward to reading it. What is your book called?
It's called The Official Depression Relief Playbook, which is not a great title, but there's a story behind it that's way too boring, and I'm not going to get into.
Fair.
Yeah.
I think that's so cool, though. I love the way you describe it as, I wish I had this when I was going through it. I think that's so, it's just, it speaks to that part of you that we spoke about earlier, of just wanting to give that to people while they're in the midst of what they're going through. I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah. And if you can't afford the book, just shoot me an email and I'll send you one. Like, if you're struggling because COVID and I get it, just shoot me an email. I'm more than happy to do that. But if you buy one, that means I can give another one away. If you buy a physical, or if you buy one, that means I can give a physical one. Because it's funny the way, I don't know if have you published anything on Amazon?
No.
So like, if you publish your own stuff on Amazon, you actually have to buy it. Like, you pay for a portion of it. Like,
okay.
if I buy like a few copies, I pay, a portion of it. But so like, I buy a few copies that I can hand out to people who really need it. So like, if you buy a copy, that helps too. But if you can't afford it, I get it. Shoot me an email. I'll send you one. Like, that's what it's there for, right? I just want eyes on it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And while we're on it, where else can they find you to connect with you?
I mean, I have a Facebook page for it, and that's cool. You can shoot me a message on that. I'm not like, I don't, I try not to spend a whole lot of time doing that.
Yeah.
Like I don't have an Instagram. I don't have a Twitter. I'm just, email's really the best way to get me.
Yeah. You're probably better for it, man. It's like you said, when you watch the news, when you're looking at social media, it's a lot coming in.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a small Facebook page that I never promoted.
Yeah.
But it's there. So, you can always hit me up on that too. Yeah.
All right. Cool, man. Well, I will put a link to your website in there. So if they're looking for you, they can at least find you there, get you an email, and
Awesome.
reach out about the book.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man.
Of course, dude. Yeah, I want to get that around because there's conversations that I've had and there's books that I've read since going through what I went through, and it's a big reason why I talk about my battle with alcoholism and my recovery, which is always ongoing, because I know where I was. I know I was hiding bottles in tour buses and waking up and drinking from the second I woke up, or if I rolled over at night, I was drinking. So I love having those conversations, or when I write about it, it's for those people that are in the worst of the worst and need to hear a worst case scenario story. That's so fantastic that if somebody had told me about it, I probably would have been like, oh, damn, I need to do something different if I had heard my story when I was in the midst of it. So that's why I like to talk about it. So I think that's so important that you say it that way of like, man, I wish I wrote this to my, basically yourself as a younger person.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, I kind of had to put my my feet back in those shoes, and
yeah,
but hindsight, right?
yeah. It's always funny to look back, but I wouldn't change anything. But I'm very happy on this side of it. And
I would change a few things for sure, but but there's positives that come out of everything, right?
Yeah, and like you said, I never imagined being where I am in my life today, and I probably wouldn't have been there had it not been for the crazy shit I put myself through. So I'm happy it happened, even though it was horrifying.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Last question for you. If you were on a stage and you were playing a concert for the whole world, every single ear was there listening some way, what would you say to them?
Holy smokes, dude. Oh man, this is going to come across real corny, but it's going to come across real corny, but I'm going to say it this way. I'll say you're capable of way more than you realize. Every single person is way more capable than they realize of anything. And you're perfect the way you are. Like you don't have to be like, there's nothing you have to accomplish. You're just trying to be the better version of yourself. You don't have to be anyone else, right? It's cool just being you. Like you're already cool. Just be more of you. I'm not saying like, you're perfect. Like you don't need to seek out help if you're hurting, but I'm saying you don't need to be anyone else. Right. So you're you for a reason. Go with that. Yeah.
I don't think that's corny. I think that's a beautiful message that it's super important for people to hear. I mean, I started Beautifully Human off before it became this podcast as a blog. Came from some self-empowerment when I wrote about my story, and I got some really amazing feedback from a friend who went out on a tour sober when he saw me on my first tour ever, so back out sober. And now he's 2 years sober, and I didn't know the power that I had.
Oh, that's amazing.
When I was just literally trying not to die. I was actively just hoping I'd wake up the next day. And it was so cool to get that. And then I was like, all right, if I didn't know the power that I had in myself, even with the story that I had just put myself through, there's so many other people that have no idea. So I started it off as a blog, and I would send like 20 questions. And the most common question, which was heartbreaking, was why me? Why me? And I was like, because you.
Oh,
You've been through life. Life is crazy. Life is beautiful. Life is wild. Life is, fill in whatever descriptor, but you've lived that life. So tell me about your life. Let's hear about it. And just seeing people's light bulb turn on, and then getting their questions back. And every single one I laughed, every single one I cried. I got to know people better, and it was really beautiful. And then, it's just like, it's a really beautiful message to tell somebody you're good as you. Doesn't mean you're perfect, because none of us are. I'm not.
right.
You're not. We're never going to be, but you're good enough as Zach. I'm good enough as Nick. And that's beautiful.
When you said because you, that was profound, man. That was like, that hit me in the chest right there. That was great. Yeah.
But it's so true. And that's
Yeah.
something I think so many people need to hear.
I'm with you.
Think about, like, I talk about this a lot on here, but think about like the homeless man that's sitting there, homeless woman, whoever it may be. If you just sit there and listen to that person, or just wave at them as you're passing by, even if you don't stop, and like, if you just acknowledge. I looked over at a dude the other day, and I gave him a peace sign because I was driving by, and that dude, the smile that just popped on his face is just like, just to be seen and like addressed as a human. So that's why I always say, because of you, man, because you, whoever you are, because you, that's why you're good enough.
Amazing, right?
Yeah. And
That's
it's so cool what that gift can give people. Cause I know when I came out of when I started into my recovery, the first person who made me feel just like a human, that I didn't like just destroy my life, and was just like, I know you need to get better, and I don't know anything about addiction, but I can help you. She was a director at the YMCA. She's a lifelong friend of mine, and she just said, I don't know how to help you with that, but I can get you better. And here's a pass to the Y. I teach a cycling class on Fridays. You should come. And it was amazing, dude. Like
Great.
just to be looked at as somebody who needs to be seen was brilliant.
Ugh.
And that's what she did to me. I mean, without saying it, she just said, because of you, Nick, come on. Like, let's get you healthy. I'll do what I can.
That's so great.
It's brilliant. It's a beautiful sentiment to put in the world. So I don't think it's corny at all. Long way around. It wasn't corny. It was quite beautiful.
Yeah, but yours is so much more eloquent.
That's okay. No comparisons.
I'll steal it.
It's
I'm gonna
just,
steal it.
yeah, please do. It's a beautiful way just to put it on somebody else, because you. That's why. And
That's
then
great.
to make them think, oh, maybe I'm good enough. Because we've all been through that. Not thinking we're good enough, or we're boring, or life sucks, or whatever it may be. But you're good enough because you're you.
Love it.
Well, dude, this has been so fun. I truly appreciate your time and coming and hanging with me.
No, I really appreciate it, dude. It's an honor. All right, I want to ask you music questions, but should we wait till after the recording?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
All right, brother. Have a beautiful rest of your night. And yeah, man.
All right. Thank you so much again.
Thank you for listening to the Beautifully Human podcast. To hear more beautiful stories from beautiful humans, follow us on Spotify and rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at the Beautifully Human Podcast. Peace signs up.